Hello, mathematicians. Today we're going to be learning about percents, more specifically writing mixed numbers as percents and decimals. To get us started, here we have a 10 by 10 grid. And a 10 by 10 grid is great for percents because in a 10 by 10 grid we have 100 squares. However, when we're dealing with mixed numbers, we're going to have more than 100%, so sometimes we're going to need 2 or more 10 by 10 grids. So to start us off, we have 1 and 14 over 100. That means that we're going to shade in one entire 10 by 10 grid and then 14 of our additional 10 by 10 grid. So as a fraction, we already have the mixed number 1 and 14 over 100. However, we can simplify this. We ask ourselves, what is the biggest number we could divide 14 and 100 by? And that would be 2. So 14 divided by 2 is equal to 7, and 100 divided by 2 is equal to 50. So 1 and 14 over 100 is equal to 1 and 7 over 50. As a percent, we're going to look at our fraction that has 100 as the denominator because percents are out of 100. And in this case, we have one entire grid filled out, so that's 100%. And then we have 14 of our additional grid filled out, so that is going to be 114%. As a decimal, that would be 1 and 14 hundredths because we have one entire grid filled out, so that's where we get one whole. And then we have 14 out of 100 filled out for our additional grid, and that's where we get 14 hundredths. We could kind of treat this as cents. So the 100 cents we have in the first grid makes one whole dollar, and then the 14 that we have shaded in our additional grid makes up like 14 cents. So we have 1 and 14 hundredths. For our next example, we have 2 and 3 over 5. This one is a little bit more challenging because percents are out of 100, and here we have 2 and 3/5. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our fraction and find an equivalent fraction that is out of 100 to help us. So we ask ourselves, what can we multiply 5 by to get 100? And we can multiply 5 by 20 to get 100. However, whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator as well. So we multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 20. The whole number stays the same, but 3 times 20 is 60 and 5 times 20 is 100. So we have 2 and 60 over 100. That means that we shade in 2 entire grids and then 60 from our last grid. So we have 100, 200, 260. And that helps us with our percent because 2 whole grids is 100 little boxes that are shaded. And then we have an additional 60, so we have 260%. So as a decimal, that would be 2 and 60 hundredths because we have 2 whole grids shaded in. And then we have 60 of our additional grid shaded in. So that is 2 and 60 hundredths. Or we could say 2 and 6/10 because we could drop the last 0. And these two decimals are equivalent. Next, we have 3 and 7 over 50. Again, we have a mixed number where the fraction is not out of 100. So to help us better figure this out, we're going to find an equivalent fraction that is out of 100. So we ask ourselves, what can we multiply our denominator 50 by to get 100? And we can multiply 50 by 2 to get 100. So the whole number stays the same, but we multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 2. 7 times 2 is 14, and 50 times 2 is 100. So now we have 3 and 14 over 100. That means we're going to shade in 3 whole grids and then 14 from our additional grid. So as a percent, knowing that each grid is 100 and we have 3 completely shaded in, we have 300 and then 14 from our additional grid. So we have 314%. As a decimal, we know that we have 3 entire grids filled out, so that's 3, and we have 14 hundreds, meaning our last grid has 14 out of the 100 that we need to make a whole. Finally, we have 1 and 10 over 25. And again, we have a mixed number where the denominator is not out of 100. So we're going to find an equivalent mixed number where our denominator is 100. So we're going to ask ourselves, what can we denominator 25 by to get 100? And we can multiply 25 by 4 to get 100. So we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 4 because whatever we multiply the denominator by, we also have to multiply the numerator by. So the whole number stays the same, but 10 times 4 is equal to 40, and 25 times 4 is equal to 100. So we have 1 and 40 over 100. So that means we're going to shade in one entire grid and then 40 out of 100 for our second grid. And as a percent, this would be 140% because one entire grid is 100 and then we have 40 squares shaded in for our second grid. So we have 140%. Then as a decimal, we have 1 and 40 hundredths because we have one entire grid shaded, so we have one whole. And then our second grid has 40, so we're going to have 40 out of 100, so that's 40 hundredths. So we have 1 and 40 hundredths. Or we could rewrite this as 1 and 4 tenths because we could drop the 0 and the decimal would still be equivalent.